All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Morning,
morning,
Judge.
Judge Reed.
Hello. Hi, Vincent. How are you doing down there?
Doing good, Judge. Still here.
Okay, good. I have got you. I want to put my gallery as my view. There we go. That's better. All right. I have read your replies that you gave me last night at about, I don't know, 8 o'clock is when I started getting them or something. But I read them and I've reread them today. So I've studied those. I went back over all of my notes and the evidence thoroughly. And I've made certain findings that I'm going to make a findings of fact as well as a judgment in the case. Now I'm going to go through and individually name those. I have found that there were, first of all, as to the vote to be used, and I stated this down in Laredo the other day, I am accepting the vote of election night as the count to be used. And that is confirmed and corroborated by that CVR report, which I consider to actually be the result of the recount that I judicially reordered, because there were so many problems with that recount apparently that I just don't accept that, and I use the CVR as it. So I'm making the finding that the vote that should be used would be 1951 for Ricardo Richie Rangel and 197. No, I'm sorry. There was a difference. That's not right. There's a different. I typed it wrong. Somebody give me those votes.
1957.
I reversed them in my typing. I'm going to have to retype this thing. So it's 1957. It was a difference of 6 votes. I tend to do that. I'm slightly dyslexic with numbers. So it's 1957 for Daisy Campos Rios. So that means a 6-vote difference. And going back through, and I have reviewed all of my notes and your arguments in reference to the voters, I'm going to find that there were 11 illegally cast votes for Daisy Campos Rios, Daisy Campos Rodriguez. So that would lead us to the conclusion that the winner of election night was the contestant, Ricardo Richie Rangel. Now, I have stated my reasoning in the document which I prepared as to who won the election that night. And there was one voter that I found that I just didn't find enough sufficient evidence to find really that the contestant had met his burden on it. And then there are 2 which I just didn't find their votes, if I remember correctly. So I've written my final findings. I have an order. Now, because of the count that I've come up with and the fact that finds that Mr. Rangel won the election, the judgment that I entered just states that. I don't know if there's something further it needs to state. I've done election contests before, but I haven't changed the vote like this.
Your Honor,
I want to be sure that the judgment that I finally enter for this is proper under the code.
There are two additional things, if I could, Your Honor, Martha Cigarroa and Valdemar Garcia, on behalf of Mr. Rangel. There are two additional things that we have, that we argued at trial, and then we sent a paper to the court today on. And the first is the issue of the accelerated appeal. Mr. Garcia can talk to you about that, including the authority that we provided to the court about that. And then secondly, Your Honor, the issue of apportioning the costs.
Right.
We did file the advisory. We talked about it at the courthouse, but those are two things that the court, that we would very respectfully ask the court to include in the judgment.
Okay, and what is the accelerated appeal language?
Your Honor, sections 232, 014 and 15. 015 says the court can accelerate an appeal if it chooses to do so in a general election. And if the court does that for this general election, it refers to, there's a cross-reference to section 232.014, which is entitled Accelerated Appeal in a Primary Contest. This isn't a primary, of course.
Right.
Under 232.14, which you can get there under 232.015, the court can shorten the time for the notice of appeal. Incidentally, contestees already filed a notice of appeal this morning. I just got the email notification before the hearing started. So
Before I entered the final judgment?
yes, Your Honor. So under the statute, the court can shorten the deadline for the notice of appeal to 5 days. Also, so what I had put in a proposed judgment that I can send to the court, or I can file if the court wants to look at the language, the court can also shorten the time frame for requesting the reporter's record, the clerk's record, the affidavit of inability to pay costs. All of that can be done within the 5 days. The court can specify, and the appellate court can also do this, but the court can specify when the record needs to be filed and when the briefs need to be filed. So that's in our motion to accelerate appeal. And as I mentioned, I can submit for the court to look at a proposed judgment with that language in it. But in addition to the cost, we would ask that the court accelerate the appeal.
All
Judge,
right.
may I respond?
Sure. Yeah, I want to hear Mr. Bully.
Judge, you know, the most important thing in anything, we accelerated the trial, but now they're asking to accelerate the appeal, and typically that's done in the primaries, and there's a reason for it, because it's very
I
time.
understand that because you
Very
got to prepare the ballots for the elections.
For the upcoming election, and in this particular case, I think having the right amount of time for everybody, having adequate time to prepare is more important. And then more importantly is that this is something that the fourth court can take up and set their own deadlines for their purposes, since they're the ones that are going to be hearing this appeal, Judge. And so we'd ask the court to defer that to the fourth court of appeals.
Your Honor, very, very briefly, from a practical standpoint, the problem with not accelerating the appeal is the contestee may stay in office and she'd be entitled to the emoluments of office while she's there. And once the contestant takes office, he'd be entitled to his benefits and the emoluments, but he can't get them from the contestee. So we still do have it's still time sensitive. And then from a more general setting, the people of District 2 now have a representative that will not be representing them if the court's affirmed. So to bring quicker finality, as opposed to having this hang over the public for longer periods of time, that's another reason why we're asking the court to accelerate the appeal. Lastly, Your Honor, if the court shortens the deadlines, if Mr. Mendoza needs more time to do the record, he can get an extension. If we need more time for our brief, if Mr. Bali needs more time for his brief, we're not foreclosed from asking the appellate court for an extension. So that doesn't mean that the deadlines are hard and fast. The appellate court could always either revisit the deadlines or grant extensions if necessary. But for the purposes of the contestee essentially holding over in office while this contest drags on, That's the main reason why we're asking the court to consider accelerating the appeal.
Exactly what does the statute say in reference to the general election?
Your Honor, if I could share my screen, I could show the court.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
It's disabled.
Let me see here. Share screen. It says host disabled. I guess I may not be the host. I need Marielle. Are you the host on this? You need to
Here she is.
disable
Judge.
that screen sharing business.
Okay, here we go. So this is our motion to accelerate appeal, Your Honor. So 232-015, acceleration of appeal by court in contest of general or special election. This is a general election. Trial or appellate court makes accelerate. So then it cross-references us to 232-014,
Right.
which is accelerated appeal in primary contests. So of course, the bond, the affidavit, cash deposit, the 5th day. I don't think here there's a requirement for a cost bond. And the Court of Appeals can also shorten the time for a motion for rehearing. I didn't put in subsection F, Your Honor, that says the Court of Appeals can deny the appellant the right to file a petition or a motion for rehearing, but that doesn't apply if you're coming in a general election. So since it wasn't relevant, I didn't include it.
You know, as I was going over all of this to make my decision, it struck me how important a local race like this is to the individual voters. Because that representative is there as their voice with how a great many benefits that government has that are used in behalf of the district are decided. And so really, when it comes to your quality of life and your what really personally affects the individual voter, that local race is very, very important, because they're one out of 4,000 voters, as opposed to 1 out of 100 million or something like that. So I see that in relation to this, that it would be appropriate to accelerate the times as they do. Y'all have been well briefed. I've certainly gotten great pleadings from you and legal background. One question I have would be the court reporter, how long he thinks it would take him on the record, and what he has in his queue and what he can do. So Vincent, I kind of need to hear from you about that. Do you mind us just asking him here now?
Of course, Your Honor.
See what he has to say.
Your Honor, may I go off the record for a little bit? Because I can't write and talk.
Yeah,
at the
I
time.
know you can't, and that's what I was just asking him. If he'll
I
do
need-
that for us.
Yes, I can do it within 5 to 7 days, more or less. Probably sooner. But I always give myself the time frame of 1 week at least.
Okay,
That's not a problem, Your Honor.
okay. So why don't we make the record filing like 10 days? And then make everything else 5. And that would include the motion for new trial and notice of appeal. Apparently, you say he's already filed it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Why don't you go disable the screen share, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
We can take that off and I can look at everybody in the gallery. There we go.
Yes.
As far as typing all of this out, I have put it in a Word format. I need to change that vote because I had that transposed. And what I'm thinking I would do is I'm just going to send it to both of you, counsel, let you look at it. I'm not going to permit further argument in relation to my findings, but I want to be sure everything is in there in the format of the judgment that we need and that states the accelerated appeal times. And then it can be returned to me. I'll have Whitworth and Figueroa do it for me
Yes, ma'am.
and send it to you, Mr. Bally, whatever they're sending to me. And
Yes,
that
ma'am.
takes
I can do
me
that,
out
Lou.
of, I am the world's worst typist. I'll grant you that. So typing 5 pages took me a little bit of time. I'm not very good at formatting, and I do have an issue when it comes to numbers and saying the correct numbers.
Your Honor, I was going to say, I think I made you look bad last night. My response to the contestee's brief had 3 typos in the e-filing. So
Actually,
it
you
was
made
a
me
small,
look good.
it was small typed. So
It just
How
happens
did you?
to me. You know, I had a head injury a few years ago, and ever since then, I don't see numbers quite right. I hear them, but when I'm looking at them, sometimes or typing them or writing them, they come out backwards. So
we
I'm
can send
going to
something to
do
Mr. Bally
that.
today, Your Honor.
Yeah, and I'll send it today, what I have typed up, and then you can put it in even the formatting is fine, except I think one is indented when it doesn't need to be. You'll see it. But
Your
I'll
Honor,
send that to both of you, and it's in a Word document.
Perfect.
Then we have to deal with the costs. And it was my decision to award a fine that the costs are to be paid by the contestee.
all right, Your Honor, we'll include that as well if it's not there.
Yeah, that's what I need. Okay.
Judge, I have a
It-
question for the clerk's record. Is it also the 10 days or the 5 days?
For which the cost record,
The clerk's
What?
record for the
the
appeal.
clerk's record. And how long does that take you?
As soon as Mr. Bali submits what he wants in the appeal, I can work on that that same day.
So 5 days would be fine. That's not an undue burden. Okay, then that'll be fine.
Okay.
Let's make that 5 days, and then the reporter, he may have his in sooner. It may be filed sooner. Okay,
Okay.
and does that, I think that concludes everything we need to talk about.
It does, Your Honor, and we do appreciate your patience with all of us.
Okay, well, as I said, I complimented both of the attorneys on their professionalism, and I reiterate that. It's
Thank you.
been a pleasure working with you.
Thank
And
you
I
so much,
found you
Judge.
both to have, as I said, been very professional in how you've worked on this. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
that takes care of everything, and I'll get back to work here and send all this to you in an email in just a few minutes.
Thank you,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor. May we
Alright.
be excused?
Yes, everyone is excused.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Judge.